Hi, thank you for joining us for this webinar. We will be talking about programming life for a better world. We will also be talking about bio-innovation and biostrategy. I have the privilege to be with three great first people and great speakers, and we will have a very beautiful afternoon in Spain and morning in the States. I want to say that we are in the beginning of a big wave, a big bioRevolution, which is triggered by technologies that we call synthetic biology. And this is the main topic that is bringing us in Navarra to have a conversation with key people in the world, because even though we are in a small corner in the south of Europe, we really want to be protagonists and we want to partner with the best all over the world. So I want to switch now and begin the conversation with Karl Schmieder. Karl is also a wonderful person that I met last year in SynBio Beta in California. I have enjoyed and learned a lot reading his book, What is Your Biostrategy? And this is what I hope he will be talking about, the importance of having a biostrategy as a company, as a region, and to build a better future. He has a background in biochemistry, but he's mainly working on strategic communication. He founded the Messaging Lab, and he's a well-known speaker and consultant. So please, Karl, you have your time now.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you, Andrew. Y gracias, Juanjo. Yo soy la persona más panameña que va a presentar hoy, pero estoy en Brooklyn y voy a hacer esta presentación en inglés, así que me perdonan por cambiar de idioma. I'm going to talk about bio-entrepreneurship and biostrategy by giving you some background and some ideas. But first, let me just introduce myself. As I said, my name is Karl Schmieder. I've been working with biotech and pharmaceutical companies on strategy, go-to-market strategy, and communications and marketing for 20 years, and started working with synthetic biology companies about 10 years ago. And about 3 years ago, published a book called What's Your Biostrategy? How to Prepare Your Business for Synthetic Biology, interviewing a number of leaders in the field, including Paul and Andrew, and having them talk about the origins of the synthetic biology movement, if we want to call it that, and then also talking about how SynBio will impact all business, because our expectation is that all business will be transformed by these technologies. So in the presentation today, I'm going to use three numbers to kind of keep this presentation grounded: 700, 100, and 60. And since I don't know who's in the audience, I figured I would start talking about beer. And here my slide is actually in Spanish. Juanjo and I had a conversation about the growth of the microbrewing industry in Spain. And I did a little research with some of the reports that he sent me. And Spain, as in the United States, has seen an explosion in microbrews or artisanal breweries, and you've seen a 700% increase over the past 10 years. This is not unlike other countries. In the United States, we say that every American in North America lives within 10 miles of a microbrewery. I, in Brooklyn, happen to live a few blocks from two of them, but if I expand my view and look just at New York City, I probably have 30 microbreweries. And I like talking about beer because it serves two functions. One is it's a good introduction to biotech for people who have not had any biology since college or even high school. And two, the infrastructure that has been built for brewing is not unlike the infrastructure that we're talking about for manufacturing using biology. So if you can imagine taking the the biofoundry and ordering a organism from the biofoundry that Paul described or that Andrew described, and then plugging it into a brewery, you basically have the ability to manufacture medicines, advanced materials, even computational tools using biology. And for some reason, my slides are not moving forward. Sorry, okay. And the infrastructure, like I said, is very, very similar. So in this image of what I'm showing is the brewing infrastructure at a typical microbrewery on the far left. In the middle is the infrastructure that's been built by a company named Bolt Threads in San Francisco. And on the far right, the product that Bolt Threads manufactures, which is spider silk protein. That is to say, the proteins that spiders produce to make spider web, which is one of the strongest biomaterials on the planet. So as you can see, the brewing infrastructure looks very similar to what Bolt is using, and that's what you'll see at any biotech company that is working with scale and maybe has moved beyond the biofoundry stage. And you can plug in an engineered mycelium, a bacteria, a yeast, or an algae into any of these brewing facilities to produce either the medicine, the material, or or the computation tools that we're going to start seeing. So like I said, like to use brewing as a good analogy. Wine also works. Most people understand that you take yeast, you add it to a few ingredients, you let it ferment, and you end up with a product. And so it's not a big stretch of the imagination to imagine a product or a bacteria, a mycelium, a yeast from a biofoundry that's been engineered to produce something plugged into this infrastructure. Say you ordered your bacteria from the biofoundry in Navarra or in Pamplona, and then you were growing algae in Sevilla where the sun never stops shining, then you have a very interesting ecosystem. And this is actually really topical today because people are talking about how do they change their supply chains, and how do they make their supply chains more locals. One of the ways you do that is by switching to biomanufacturing. So let me go on to the next number, 100. So a few years ago, the biotech incubator IndieBio put out a report saying that the global economy would double over the next 20 years to 200 trillion. So the current bioeconomy is just under 100 trillion. And if trends continue the way that they are happening right now, the total economy would double to 200 trillion. And if you look at this slide, you can see that many of the industries that are listed have substantial growth over the next 20 years. What you'll also notice is this slide does not have biotech or pharmaceuticals on it because biotechnology is actually an enabling technology. Many people look at biotech and they think of it as being a subset of the pharmaceutical industry, but actually it's just an enabling tool. And so it can be applied to basically any industry. One of the things I love doing with people is talking about their industry and discussing strategies for incorporating biology or biotechnology into their businesses. And this, again, especially in the face of COVID-19, has been really interesting because since people want to change their supply chains, they want to be able to do things locally. They want to be able to figure out how biomanufacturing might apply to their particular product set. If that $100 trillion is a bit high or hard to digest, McKinsey, the global consulting firm, just put out a report at the beginning of June saying that they believe that over the next 10 years, biotechnology could add $4 trillion to the bioeconomy, and that's based on examining 400 applications that are scientifically feasible today or are being manufactured today. I find that number of 4 trillion to be a bit conservative because I like to think about exponentials. And I also know that I just did a report where over the last 6 months, institutional biotech funds in the United States have received almost $15 billion in funding. Now, most of that money will go into healthcare, that is biopharmaceutical applications, but I don't think all that money is going to end up there. And one of the areas that's been seeing a tremendous amount of investment has been the clean meat or alternate clean protein space, where you're seeing companies raise rounds that are on average $100 million with valuations that are in the $1 billion. So that's an area that's seeing a lot of activity. And I'll talk about one company in particular that announced their funding yesterday as I go forward. So this is what McKinsey said. And I mean, again, I think that the number is very conservative, especially given that a few years ago when we were writing What's Your Bio Strategy, people at McKinsey and other consulting firms told us that they wouldn't have to worry about synthetic biology or its impact on industry for 7 to 8 years. And so that was in 2017. Now it's 2020. So 3 years have gone by. Obviously, McKinsey is seeing that this is something that they should be paying attention to. And they're probably using, if I know them, the way they operate, they're using this report as a way to spur conversations with their clients. Also for McKinsey, and this is where we kind of get more into the applications of bio-entrepreneurship and the need for having a bio-strategy, McKinsey says in that same report that 60% of the global economy's physical inputs can be produced with biology. And again, I think this number I actually am in agreement with. There's still a lot of things that we don't know how to replace with biology, but I think as the century moves on, we will be able to replace things like, for example, rare earth metals that are necessary to make a cell phone or certain electronics to work. We'll replace them with biological processes. But just to kind of give you a highlight of some of the things that are on this picture, there is a wallet that is made of a leather that is brewed in Mexico by a company called Polybion, and they ferment food waste to make sustainable leather, and the leather is already finding its way into shoes, which are manufactured in the biggest North American shoe manufacturing facilities in North America, in the state of Guanajuato. Construction is an area where there is an incredible amount of waste. There's a company in North Carolina called Biomason that is able to make bricks. They grow bricks, and they basically can use any kind of sand because most bricks are made with a very specific kind of sand. The picture from Puma shows a line of clothing that they just put out that is sustainable, but not only is it sustainable, they're using bacteria to dye the clothing. And that's very, to me, important because what they're doing is they're moving away from oil-based or petroleum-based dyes. I mentioned spider silk a couple slides ago. The picture from Lexus and also the jacket on the far right are from a company called Spiber. Spiber also brews proteins from spiders, and they've come up with a number of applications for those. They're not the only company. There's 5 or 6 companies that are doing spider proteins and putting them into different applications, including parts for cars, which I find fascinating. I mentioned the alternate protein space. I've got a bottle here from Geltor. Geltor just announced yesterday almost $100 million funding for the production of collagens that are human collagens. Right now, the market mostly uses, in cosmetics, the cosmetics market mostly uses collagen derived from pigs. So you can imagine that using something that already exists in humans is going to be much more compatible with our bodies. In addition, it opens up a basically more than 1 billion person market with Muslims and Jews who will not use any product that is derived from pigs. Then finally, you've got applications of growing bone outside of the body, people who are 3D printing meats, and using algae to produce sneakers. All this is important because it's much more sustainable, and this is kind of the direction that we're going in, and that's why we're in a century that has been called the biotech century. One of the things that we did as part of writing the book was come up with a canvas to help companies understand why they need to have a strategy for incorporating biology into their workflows or into their businesses. I'm more than happy to send this or this entire presentation to you and to even walk through what this looks like if you're interested. But we found it a very useful tool to be able to talk to different companies and just get them thinking about how biotech is impacting their future. And we're already seeing it. If we're seeing companies like Lexus and Puma incorporate biology or biomaterials into their manufacturing, we know there's a lot more that's going to happen and that people need to talk about. So, gracias. Juanjo, and thank you for listening. I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you so much, Karl, for your presentation and for giving us very specific and concrete examples that we can follow, and these numbers that are also synthesizing very well what the future will look like. I really like your process, which is also synthesized in this canvas, and I hope that we will follow the conversation as a region and also with some of our companies in Navarra. So hopefully in the near future, we will ask you to help us here.
Yeah. My pleasure.
We have a few minutes left, but I want to ask you about maybe your next book and also your ideas about building a community and connecting communities to make this future real sooner and better.
Yeah, so I'm working on a new book that's called Grow Your Phone, and I thought I was very interested in kind of exploring what the future might look like for computation and how we could start really thinking biologically about things that we use in our everyday world. And given that we spend so much time on our phones, I thought that would really be a good place to start. And I'm starting to learn that there's a lot of kind of alternative computation methods, not necessarily that use biology, but there are people thinking about this, and I'd like more people to understand that. Now, in terms of community building, I think it's actually really important. One of the things that has been repeated to me over and over again by the founder of PolyBion, the Mexican company that I showed their leather, is that what makes biology or biotech different than computing or data is that initially, to access a computer, you had to be in one of the big computation centers, so Cambridge or Berkeley, where there's a big university. The difference with biology and biotechnology is biology is everywhere. We basically all have access to it, and we are increasingly able to access the tools. So we're seeing this democratization happening when it comes to biotech, and it's getting much easier to use it. So it's very, very exciting. And of course, with that ability to use it comes great responsibility. And I think that, we're having this conversation as a community. In New York, we've got several biotech communities focused on, for example, I helped start one that focuses on non-healthcare applications of biotech, or more focused on synthetic biology. But we are a global community, and I think it's very important for us to be talking, not just amongst ourselves, but really more importantly, to be out talking to people who don't know anything about these technologies, because it's important for us to dispel fear. People are very afraid of what they don't know. We see this playing out, especially here in the United States with COVID-19. There's a tremendous amount of fear because people don't understand the science. Science is a foreign language to them. So anything we can do to help people understand what we're doing and why it's important, I think is essential. And that's why I always start my presentations talking about beer and wine, because I think it's something everybody understands. Most of us like beer and wine, and it's something that we can, use as a lead into what we can do with biotech.
Okay, thank you, Karl. Unfortunately, we are reaching the end of this session, and I want to thank the audience for joining us today. I want to thank the three of you, and I want to end our time giving you the opportunity to say your final words. So, Karl.
Thank you to all of you. I mean, Andrew, good to see you. Paul, great to see you. Missed you so much. And Juanjo, hopefully we'll all talk to each other soon. And thank you to everybody who participated today. I think it was a great set of presentations. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. And I hope the three of you visit Navarra soon. Goodbye.
Yeah, please. Bye.